Last Christmas Eve, my little sister and I spent with our dad at his house, celebrating and having a Christmas party with our cousins on his side of the family. It was a fantastic dinner. Mom called and said she was watching the weather news and that a winter advisory was out for late-night driving. We should consider staying with Dad or getting started back home. My sister wanted to be home for Christmas Day because all our gifts were under our tree at Mom's. So, we said our goodbyes, wished everyone a Merry Christmas, and hit the road. It's only a 2-hour drive, so no one was worried. Plus, it wasn't that late, even if it had been dark for a while. We were on the road for only 40 minutes when the blizzard hit us. The road turned to ice so quickly, and I became super tense. I've only been driving for a year, and it was really my first winter driving. And I had my little sister with me, so I was also responsible for her safety. My dad lives in the country, so we still hadn't reached the interstate, which might be safer if the salt trucks had been out. We'd been listening to music on my cell phone, and I had taken bunches of pictures at the party, so my battery died about the same time the storm hit. So, I couldn't call anyone to see if we were in an isolated burst of snow, or if this was the forecasted major front. I thought about turning back, but the road was so slick the car had difficulty with traction. If there was an open service center, I could buy a phone charger, but being Christmas Eve, every place was closed. At one intersection with 2 abandoned gas stations was a motel. The red vacancy sign glowed in the snow shower, and we considered ourselves lucky. They definitely would have a telephone I could use to call Mom. The lobby door was open, and there was a receptionist, but not a single car was in the motel parking lot. I explained our dilemma to the receptionist and asked if we could use the motel phone. He said normally yes, but a car had hit a telephone pole somewhere up the road, and the line was down, so there was no service at the motel. He also explained that there was never cell service because cell towers in this area are inadequate. But try the phone, it may come back up soon. The way he said it, though, was very foreboding. He was a strange person. I tried the phone, but got that beeping sound, meaning there was no service. I tried several times over the next hour, and the snow outside kept piling up. The phone was still without service, and my sister and I were exhausted. Deciding that the weather was too dangerous to continue, I rented a room for the night. We would leave first thing in the morning after the roads were plowed. I know my parents would be worried when we did not show up, but there really wasn't anything I could do, and this was the safest thing to do. The motel was grungy and very run down. Everything was old and worn out. The room smelled foul, and the bed sheets were clean but tattered. We decided to sleep in our clothes, and were so exhausted we fell asleep immediately. At about 2 a.m., something woke me up. I don't know what it was, just a feeling I got, and I'm grateful that I did. If I hadn't, who knows what may have happened to my little sister. Instantly, I knew my little sister wasn't in bed next to me. My heart began to race as I searched the room with my eyes in the dark. There was light through the curtain from a building light outside the room. The bathroom door was open, and it was dark. She wasn't in there. I slipped into my shoes and ran to the front desk. The same man was still there. "Have you seen my sister? She isn't in the room." He looked at me in bewilderment, shrugged and said no, all quiet here. I turned from the lobby door and headed to our snow-covered car in the parking area to check it. As I rounded the corner, a man in an oversized black coat was walking toward a van, holding my little sister's hand. He was trying to entice my sister into the truck. I ran at him with all my strength and body slammed into him. He slipped in the snow and released my sister. I yelled to her, "Run!" As I attacked again, I slipped on the ice and tumbled to the ground. The man took that opportunity to jump into the van, locked the door, and drove away. I took my sister back to the motel room and hugged her. I told her everything would be fine and not to worry. I was with her. When she calmed down, she explained that she couldn't sleep, so she took my credit card from my wallet and went to the vending machine to get a candy bar and chips. And there was this man who said he had a lot of Christmas candy in his van, in the parking lot. If I wanted it, he would give it to me. So, I went with him. I don't know what would have happened to my little sister that Christmas night, but I'm happy everything is okay. A few hours later, the phone line was repaired, and I called my mom. She called the police. The police never uncovered who the man was. They had a report of a stolen van from not far away, and it was recovered. I could only tell them he was tall and wore a black coat. I thought he was in his late 40s, but that's difficult for a 16-year-old to really tell. My sister is still disturbed by this trauma. She wakes in her sleep, fearful often. I feel so sorry for her. No child should be terrorized by their memories. What spooks me is that this guy is still at large, and probably is still snatching little kids. Last March, I was driving cross-country to the wedding of my cousin. Why anyone would marry in March, I don't know. I had been in a wintry mix for several hours, and it was beginning to ice the windshield. I had no one to swap out the driving, so I was getting dog-tired. The traffic came to a slow crawl, as the weather caused significant delays. I didn't think it could get much worse when a truck slid into a pickup truck not far ahead of me. I was stuck behind it for 2 hours before a tow truck pulled it to the side of the highway. I must find a motel for the night by this time. I was way behind schedule and super tired, and the weather showed no signs of letting up. At the next exit, a sign above the trees was written Motel. It was a small route, not a significant highway exchange, but I also had the crucial need for a toilet, so I took the exit. The motel was visually in disrepair, but in an emergency it'll have to do. I walked into the lobby, and a man glared at me from the front desk, and a young woman in her early 20s was with him. The woman spoke first, inquiring if I was traveling alone. I said, yeah, I'll need a single room, and dug out my ID and credit card. Then the man said they could only take cash, as their card reader wasn't working. I should have listened to the warning signs in my brain, but I was so in need of a room I just let it pass as fatigue. I hunted through my wallet and came up with the cash, and the man tossed me a key. At the room, I flung open the door and raced to the bathroom, not looking around the room. When I finished, I turned on the bedroom light and glanced around. It was filthy. The room was depressing and dilapidated beyond belief. I took my cell phone light and checked the mattress for bugs. It looked like it was a bedbug farm. I nearly choked. I wasn't sure how I would sleep in this room. It would be impossible to sleep here. It would be more comfortable sleeping in the front seat of my car with the seat laid back. I just used the parking space at the motel. I ran the heat in the car for a couple of minutes, then covered myself with my coat, and quickly was sound asleep in the passenger reclined seat. Snow had fallen on the car, so I was blanketed and out of sight when I heard a man talking to his cell phone in front of the motel. It was the same man from the front desk. My cell phone said it was 2:45. When he finished talking, he turned, went to my room and unlocked the door. He didn't turn the light on and entered. I was horrified and petrified with fear. 30 seconds later, he came out of the room, but not alone. He was accompanied by a second man. They both were loudly swearing and visually angry. In alarm, I watched from my hidden position in the car. How did the second man get into the room? When did he go into the room? Was he there when I first went in? The front desk man started walking over to my car. I froze. Then I quickly covered my head with my coat and slunk as low as possible in the reclined seat. He tried the locked door, then swept away some snow from the glass and put his face close to peer in. The glass had a glaze of ice over it by this time, so he could see nothing. I didn't even breathe. The two creeps spoke to each other. The one pointed across the street where there was an all-night cafe. They started to move in that direction, and I slipped across the console and tried to start the car. It chugged at first, a fear that the battery had died swept through me. But the engine turned over, and I put it into gear and shot out of there. The two men turned at the sound of the car rushing past them, and I could see the anger on their faces. When morning came, I was still driving. I called my cousin, told them I'd be on time for their wedding, and gave them a hint of the story I had to tell them when we were together. When I arrived that afternoon at my cousin's, we pieced together where the motel was, and was able to MapQuest its name. With this information, I called the police and made a report. The officer I spoke with listened, and told me that the motel had permanently closed several months ago. This chilling nightmare could have been much worse if the bedbugs hadn't saved my life that night. A year ago, I went on a hiking trip with 3 friends of mine. We were friends from high school, but we were all graduated now and working. We were heading to Pisgah National Forest in the Blue Ridge Mountains for a weekend of hiking and gem mining. There are many trails and tourist gem mines along the Blue Ridge Parkway. After a great day of hiking and sightseeing on the second night, we arrived at a nice motel with a fantastic view and settled in for the night. But in a short time, an argument erupted, and it seemed I was the odd man out. It got so heated we were about to slug each other, and being the weakest of the three, I was sure I would lose on that account as well. Luckily, I had driven to the national forest to meet them, because I came from a different direction, so I had my car, and they had a car. Since this wouldn't end well, I said goodbye and left them. I didn't know exactly where I would spend the night, but many motels are just off the Blue Ridge, hidden in the mountains. I didn't need to go far when I saw an old motel, probably 1940s. I booked a room at a fraction of the cost of the motel, and my now ex-friends were staying. I was still hoping that everyone would have cooled off in the morning, and we could continue our hiking adventures together as friends. The desk clerk gave me the room key, and I headed over to the room. As I passed the room before mine, the door was open and I glanced in. The room was lit by the blue hue of a television. I didn't see anyone, but I wasn't really looking, just passing by. My room was a cheaply decorated motel room that reflected the price. The bed was a queen with a 1970s-looking bed cover. It all was clean enough. I was still angry over the argument, so I lay on the bed replaying everything in my mind. I was deep in my thoughts when a strange noise awakened me. At first, I didn't pay attention, but it intermittently continued. I listened more intently and realized it was coming from the room beside mine. The sound was muffled. I just figured it was a TV show and dozed off to sleep. However, that didn't last long, as I was shocked to alertness by a rapid banging on the wall that separated the rooms. I couldn't sleep with this racket, so I decided to go next door and confront them about the noise, and ask them not to bang on the wall so I could sleep. The door was still open, so I knocked, but there wasn't a sound. I knocked again and said hello, and stepped into the room. Why I did that, I have no idea. The bed sheets were tossed, but no one was in the room. I was perplexed because moments before, I had heard a loud banging. From my angle in the room now, I could see the TV. The screen was on without sound, and there was a sticky note with something written on it hanging in the center. I moved closer, and it read under the bed. I was freaked out, bolted back to my room, and locked the door. I wasn't back in my room for a few minutes before I heard the banging again on the motel wall. I was spooked by this and decided to get my money back and leave this motel. I grabbed my things, went to the front desk, and told the clerk to kick the people out of the room next to mine. They've made it impossible for me to stay the night. The night clerk looked at me as if I was the crazy one and said the rooms on either side of my room were not rented. I said someone was undoubtedly in the room and needed my money reimbursed. He took his house key, and we went together to the room. He unlocked the door, and the room was dark. The TV was off, and no lights were on. The room was silent. The post-it note was also missing. The clerk said he couldn't refund my room, but I didn't care. It wasn't very much anyhow. And I went back to my friends and told them the story. We are all good now. I don't know who or what was under that bed at that motel off the Blue Ridge Parkway, and I don't know what I experienced at the motel. And quite frankly, I don't want to know.